In recent events like this, do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you are watching from. Because what happened on Jimmy Kimmel's show tonight is already being called one of the most surreal moments in late-night history. Was it real? Was it staged? Or did something else entirely happen behind the cameras? And more importantly, what does it say about the man we all thought we knew, Jim Carrey? The audience filed into the theater, buzzing with anticipation. Jim Carrey had been in the news recently for reasons that seemed pulled from a science fiction plot. Rumors had spread online, claiming that the iconic actor had been replaced or cloned. With viral images comparing his past appearances to subtle changes in facial expression and body language. Some claimed he was still the original. Others insisted the Carrey they were seeing now was a digital recreation or a living replica. The story dominated entertainment news feeds, social media threads, and late-night commentary. It was bizarre, unsettling, and for millions of fans, almost unbelievable. Jimmy Kimmel, known for his affable charm and easygoing interviews, had introduced the segment with his usual levity. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we welcome a man who has made us laugh, cry, and occasionally question reality itself. The one and only Jim Carrey. The audience erupted in applause. Kimmel grinned, gesturing dramatically toward the guest chair, as if inviting the world's attention into a shared secret. Jim Carrey walked out, moving slightly differently than he had in years past. His usual elastic expressions were still there, but something was off. The audience noticed a tension in his movements, a precision that felt almost deliberate, like a performance layered over performance. Some viewers in the crowd whispered to each other, "Is it really him?" While others stared, fascinated, trying to reconcile the man before them with the viral discussions they had seen online. The first few minutes began innocuously, with lighthearted jokes about Carrey's career, The Mask, Ace Ventura, and eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. Kimmel laughed easily, allowing Carrey to riff, teasing him about his well-known penchant for improvisation. But then, Kimmel shifted. Subtly at first, his tone hinted at the controversy surrounding Carrey's recent appearances. "So, Jim," Kimmel began, leaning forward, hands resting on the desk, eyes narrowing slightly. "People are talking online, saying you've changed. Some are even asking if you're, well, replaced or cloned. What's the truth?" The room went silent for a moment. The phrasing was casual, but the implications were heavy. Carrey paused, the twitch of a smile freezing on his face. The audience sensed the shift, the undercurrent of tension moving through the air like static electricity. Was this just a playful setup, or had Kimmel crossed a line? Carrey's response was measured at first, almost philosophical. "People love to speculate," he said softly, "about what is real and what is not. Sometimes the truth isn't what they want to see." But Kimmel pressed again, his voice playful but edged with insistence. "Come on, Jim, some of these videos online, they almost look like someone else is playing you. Maybe a very good impersonator." A ripple of nervous laughter ran through the audience. It was funny, if you ignored the undertone, the implication that Carrey's identity could be questioned in real time on a live broadcast. Carrey's eyes locked with Kimmel's. The smile faded completely. "A very good impersonator," he repeated. "That's what you think I am now." The audience could feel the tension growing. What started as playful commentary had begun to spiral. There was a subtle charge in Carrey's posture, the way he shifted in the chair, the way his gaze sharpened. Something that had been only a rumor online was now alive, unfolding in front of thousands of people. Kimmel, sensing the audience's unease, attempted to joke again, this time leaning a little too far into the viral theory. "I mean, if someone made a perfect copy of you, they'd have to get your comedic timing exactly right. And honestly, some of the videos online make me wonder if even you could pull it off these days." That was the moment the audience sensed the line had been crossed, not with loud words, but with implication, with mockery. The tension was palpable. Carrey did not respond immediately. He sat still, the quiet before a storm. And in that pause, everyone watching knew the interview was about to shift into something none of them had expected. Questions hung in the air. Was this just a joke? Or was Kimmel intentionally provoking him? Could Carrey keep his composure? And what would happen if he didn't? The pause stretched long enough for the audience to feel the weight of it. Jim Carrey's usual animated energy was gone, replaced with a controlled, almost ominous calm. He leaned back slightly, fingers interlaced, eyes scanning the set with a subtle intensity. This was not just a celebrity interview anymore. This was a moment where a public figure's identity, the very question of who he was, had been placed on the table in front of millions. Jimmy Kimmel, still grinning, tried to maintain the playful veneer. "I'm just saying, Jim," he said lightly. "If someone made a perfect replica of you, it would probably get more viral views than this show ever could. That's all I'm saying." Carrey tilted his head, his gaze sharpening, lips pressed together. The tension in the room thickened. "Viral views," he repeated, almost to himself. So now, my life, my career, my choices, are reduced to clicks and impressions. That's funny coming from you, Jimmy, because you've built your whole show off telling people they don't matter unless they make people laugh. The audience gasped softly. The line had cut deeper than any joke could. Kimmel's grin faltered, the confidence that usually carried him through moments of awkwardness starting to slip. He attempted a laugh, brushing it off. Come on, Jim, I'm just joking. You know I'm joking. Carrey did not smile. Instead, he leaned forward, voice calm, but edged with steel. You're joking at my expense. You're implying I've been replaced, cloned, something less than myself, and you're calling it comedy? That's not a joke. That's a statement about how easily people are willing to dismiss reality. A low murmur went through the audience. The energy in the room had shifted. What had started as light banter was now a confrontation. Kimmel, sensing the discomfort, tried to redirect. Look, Jim, I don't mean to offend. It's just, everyone's talking about these videos. People online are obsessed. I thought it would be fun to bring it up. Carrey shook his head slowly, eyes locked on Kimmel. Fun? You call questioning my identity fun? You think that's a laugh? You think undermining someone's entire existence, their humanity, is just entertainment? The crowd shifted in their seats, some leaning forward, captivated, others craning to see if Kimmel would respond. The host, usually quick with a comeback, hesitated. For the first time, the control of the room felt like it had shifted. Then Kimmel, perhaps sensing the viral potential, made the misstep that would dominate social media. Well, you know, Jim, if people can't tell the difference, maybe that's on you. A silence like a held breath filled the theater. The implication was clear. If Jim Carrey looked different, moved differently, expressed himself differently even slightly, that somehow it was his responsibility, not the mockery or speculation, to reassure the public he was real. Carrey's calm demeanor hardened. He sat upright, shoulders squared, and in a voice, measured but cutting, said, On me. Really, Jimmy? You're blaming me for your inability to see me for who I am. Maybe you should try looking closer, not just at the surface. The audience gasped audibly. This was not just a comeback. This was a reversal. The man everyone had questioned, joked about, and dissected had turned the mirror back on the host. Kimmel attempted a laugh. A nervous, stammering chuckle, but it didn't land. Carrey's words hung in the air like a challenge. The audience could feel that he was no longer participating in the playful dance of late-night television. He was setting terms, defining boundaries. Carrey continued, calm but unrelenting. You came here to make headlines, to tease the idea that I'm not myself. But I'm still here, still me, and it's exhausting watching people pretend otherwise. The atmosphere in the theater shifted palpably. No longer just an interview. This had become a confrontation about respect, perception, and power. The question that buzzed in everyone's minds was clear. Would Carrey snap? And if he did, what would happen next? The tension in the studio was electric, almost visible, as Carrey's words lingered. Jimmy Kimmel, usually the master of rhythm and timing, sat frozen for a fraction of a second longer than usual. The audience sensed it immediately. This was no longer light-hearted teasing. This was a reckoning. For years, Carrey had been a master of performance. A man who could bend reality with his expressions, turning absurdity into insight. Tonight, he used that mastery not for laughter, but as armor. His gaze remained fixed, his body still, but the weight of his presence dominated the stage. The subtle twitch in his jaw and the sharp focus in his eyes told the audience he was ready to reclaim the narrative. Kimmel attempted to pivot, leaning forward with that practiced charm. Jim, come on. You know people are just curious. It's the internet, exaggerates everything. Nobody actually exaggerates everything. Carrey interrupted softly, his voice cutting through the hum of whispered audience reactions. So when someone says I've been replaced or cloned, that's just curiosity. That's just exaggeration. You're framing my identity, my life, as entertainment, and you call that innocent curiosity. The audience collectively held its breath. The room had shifted from laughter to almost reverent silence. Even the camera operators, normally background players, were visibly leaning forward to capture the moment. Kimmel tried again, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I mean, Jim. Some people online. Carrey's voice rose slightly, but still measured. No. Jimmy, don't start with some people. You're the one putting words in the air, laughing at a version of me that doesn't exist. That's on you, on this stage, live, in front of everyone. Are you really going to sit there and pretend this is harmless? For the first time, Kimmel's confident demeanor cracked. He opened his mouth to respond, but Carrey leaned in just a little, his eyes narrowing slightly, and the weight of his presence was undeniable. Let me make this simple, Carrey said, voice low but commanding. If you want to have a conversation, have it with me, the real me, not the idea of me you think is entertaining enough to joke about. The audience erupted into soft applause. The first spontaneous reaction that night. It wasn't laughter, it was recognition. Recognition that Carrey had seized control of the narrative and reframed the conversation entirely. Kimmel attempted a chuckle, a nervous, broken sound. All right, I get it. Carrey held up a hand, cutting him off. No, Jimmy, you don't get it. This isn't about me being offended. This is about dignity, about not letting people reduce someone to a punchline because it's convenient. And right now, that's exactly what's happening. The camera caught the subtle smirk creeping onto Carrey's face, the one that hinted at victory without arrogance. He leaned back slightly, exhaling, letting the weight of his words settle. The audience was completely captivated. This was the same man who had made the world laugh at absurdity. Now teaching a lesson in quiet authority. Kimmel tried to recover, but the words he chose betrayed him. Well, maybe some of it is just Carrey interrupted again, sharper this time. No, Jimmy, it's all on you now. You decided to bring up these ridiculous rumors. You framed it as curiosity. And you mocked the idea that I could still be myself. Don't hide behind the internet. Don't hide behind speculation. Look at me. This is me. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. The audience clutched their seats. The energy in the theater, thick and charged. Kimmel leaned back, rubbing his face, as though he had suddenly realized the stakes of his own questions. And then Carrey, with a calm but piercing glance at the host, added the line that would dominate social media for hours. So tell me, Jimmy, who's really being cloned here? The man sitting in this chair, or the host pretending he's in control? The audience gasped audibly, some rising to their feet in shock. Cameras swiveled frantically to capture every moment. Kimmel, for the first time, was speechless. That was the tipping point. The moment where a late-night interview became viral history, where Carrey transformed speculation, mockery, and rumor into a masterclass of composure and authority. The theater felt almost suffocating after Carrey's final words. The usual rhythm of a late-night interview setup, punchline, applause had dissolved entirely. Instead, the audience was caught in a tense, almost electric stillness. Every camera in the studio captured Carrey's controlled posture, the way he occupied the space with quiet authority. He did not shout, he did not gesticulate wildly. But every movement, every subtle tilt of the head, communicated that he was in charge now. Kimmel, normally quick to reclaim the rhythm with humor or a clever quip, hesitated. His practiced ease faltered under Carrey's intensity. The host attempted a smile, a half-hearted gesture to normalize the moment, but it landed flat. For once, the audience could sense the imbalance. The man who usually directs the conversation, cues the laughter, and controls the stage, had lost his foothold. Carrey leaned back, letting the silence do the work. He spoke calmly, almost conversationally, explaining that rumors and viral speculation do not define him. The idea that someone could replace him, that digital manipulation could mimic decades of lived experience, was absurd, but the absurdity was not funny tonight. It was a mirror, reflecting the ways in which the media, the internet, and even friendly hosts sometimes prioritize spectacle over truth. The subtle shift was felt immediately. The audience had moved from watching a late-night segment to witnessing something historical. This was not a performance. This was a statement about agency, identity, and the refusal to be trivialized. Kimmel attempted to steer the conversation back to lighter topics, mentioning upcoming projects and comedic roles Carrey had in the works. But Carrey's presence dominated every word. Each attempt at humor by the host sounded strained, almost defensive. The audience no longer laughed automatically. They were listening. They were waiting. They were witnessing. At one point, Carrey made a small, almost imperceptible gesture, leaning slightly forward, voice softening that carried immense weight. He talked about the pressures of being a public figure in the digital age, how identity can be manipulated and commodified online, and how viral theories and rumors, though absurd, affect real lives. There was no anger in his tone, only precision. Each sentence landed with clarity, cutting through the tension without raising his voice. The conversation, which had begun as a light-hearted riff on bizarre internet speculation, had turned into a masterclass of controlled authority. The audience could feel that Carrey had redefined the power dynamic in the room. It was no longer about who could tell a joke or control the narrative. It was about respect and truth. Meanwhile, Kimmel, despite his experience and quick wit, struggled to maintain composure. The show's band played lightly in the background, almost as if to signal a transition back to normalcy, but the effect was jarring. Carrey's quiet dominance made the usual rhythms feel awkward and forced. Every attempt at levity was undercut by the tension he had created simply by asserting himself calmly, refusing to participate in mockery or speculation. The energy in the theater remained taut. Even those off-camera, the crew and production staff, sensed the weight of the moment. Carrey had transformed a playful interview into an unspoken challenge. Respect reality, or be exposed in your own space. By the time the segment reached what would normally be a closing joke, the audience realized something significant. They had seen a celebrity confront not just rumors, but the cultural machinery that perpetuates them, live, in front of millions. Carrey had taken what could have been ridicule and turned it into authority, leaving Kimmel visibly disarmed, struggling to regain the flow. The moment had crossed a threshold. It was no longer about viral speculation. It was about control, integrity, and the audience's recognition that sometimes silence, presence, and precise words are far more powerful than any joke. The aftermath of the exchange was immediate and palpable. Clips from the episode began circulating online almost as soon as the cameras stopped rolling. The title disguised or replaced. Jimmy Kimmel's live reaction to Jim Carrey goes viral, began trending across social media platforms within minutes. Fans and casual viewers alike replayed the moment where Carrey had leaned forward, calm but unyielding, and confronted the suggestion that he might not be himself. The narrative shifted quickly. People were no longer debating whether the jokes were funny or in poor taste. Instead, they were talking about how Carrey had completely reclaimed the conversation. Analysts dissected his demeanor, his choice of words, the subtle movements that conveyed confidence and control. Some described it as a masterclass in quiet authority. He had taken a situation built on mockery and rumors, and without shouting, without theatrics, he had exposed the hosts. Overstepped. Kimmel's reactions were scrutinized too. His nervous laughter, the occasional glance to the side, the strained attempts at humor, all of it was magnified. For the first time in years, viewers saw a late-night host caught slightly off balance. Some commentators framed it as a rare moment of vulnerability for Kimmel, while others suggested it was evidence that even seasoned hosts can be humbled when confronted with truth delivered calmly but firmly. Meanwhile, Carrey's own presence became the focus of conversation. The media highlighted the way he had addressed the rumors about being replaced or cloned. He did not dismiss the speculation with jokes. He did not over-explain. Instead, he reframed the discussion, turning the narrative on those who had been quick to spread it. His point was clear. Identity is not a punchline. Lived experience, authenticity, and personal agency cannot be replicated or faked. The backlash against the host's remarks grew. Clips of Kimmel attempting to recover with humor were juxtaposed with Carrey's composed rebuttals, creating a clear contrast. Fans flooded comment sections, praising Carrey for his restraint, his wit, and his ability to command a room without resorting to shouting or theatrics. Some even called it a career-defining moment, one that would be studied in media discussions for years to come. Behind the scenes, insiders revealed that Carrey had prepared for the possibility of the viral rumors being brought up. While he was never expecting a confrontation of this intensity, he had a strategy: remain calm, assert presence, and redirect the conversation without descending into anger. The plan worked perfectly. By refusing to play into speculation or mockery, he not only preserved his dignity, but also subtly embarrassed the host, leaving Kimmel momentarily speechless. By the next day, headlines dominated the internet. Jim Carrey silences late-night mockery. The viral moment Jimmy Kimmel did not expect. Cloned or not, Carrey remains in control. Social media users shared GIFs of Carrey's measured pauses, his deliberate gestures, and his sharp glances, praising the subtle mastery of his performance. Every replay highlighted the dramatic escalation and the ultimate shift in authority. Even more interesting, Carrey did not comment publicly on the episode immediately. There were no tweets, no interviews, no statements. The silence itself became part of the story. It amplified his triumph. By choosing not to react further, he allowed the moment to speak for itself. The audience, the media, and the internet were left to witness and analyze the clear victory. A man asserting his reality against speculation and mockery, and doing so without losing his composure for a second. The incident quickly became more than just a viral clip. It was a lesson in authority, poise, and the power of presence. It demonstrated how a single controlled confrontation can dominate public attention far more effectively than any shouted argument or sensational headline. And for those watching, it left a question lingering. In the age of viral rumors and digital manipulation, who truly controls the narrative, the one who spreads it, or the one who refuses to play along? The room was electric. Even after the cameras cut to the band or Kimmel tried to force a laugh, the audience could feel that the energy had shifted irreversibly. Carrey had dismantled the setup of the interview without shouting, without dramatics. The viral clips circulating online had already begun to dominate conversations. The calm, precise way he had challenged Kimmel, his refusal to allow the rumors of being cloned or replaced to define him, and his subtle dominance of the stage had made him the center of attention in every way that mattered. Kimmel attempted to regain control, leaning forward with a nervous smile. "Come on, Jim, it's all just fun. You know people are curious." Carrey's eyes narrowed slightly, and the audience could see that something had shifted. He did not respond with anger. Instead, he slowly reached for his microphone and removed it, placing it deliberately on Kimmel's desk. The click of the pack hitting the wood echoed in the silent theater. louder than any punchline. Every person in the room understood the meaning. He was done. The host's attempt to interject faltered. Wait. Jim Carrey did not turn. He rose with quiet precision, each movement deliberate, measured. There was no drama, no flourish. Just authority, calm and undeniable. He walked past the cameras and band, past the stunned audience, toward the backstage exit. With every step, the room seemed to shrink around him, the usual rhythm of late-night television suspended in shock. The audience erupted into a mix of applause and murmurs. Some cheered in admiration, others whispered in disbelief. Social media immediately exploded with GIFs and clips. The removal of the microphone, Carrey's measured walk, the stunned reaction of Kimmel. The trending hashtags were instantaneous. Hashtag Jim Carrey walks off. Hashtag Jimmy Kimmel viral. Fans debated furiously online, was Kimmel out of line? Did Carrey overreact? Or had he made the most commanding statement of his career without a single raised voice? Back on stage, Kimmel tried to regain composure, leaning on the desk, adjusting his notes, laughing nervously. The audience sensed the tension. It was no longer just a joke, and Kimmel could feel it. He had framed the conversation around speculation, and the fallout was immediate. The dynamic had reversed. The guest controlled the narrative, and the host was left responding to it. Even commentators weighed in that evening. Many called it a masterclass in presence, asserting that Carrey's decision to walk off demonstrated boundaries, dignity, and control in a world where online speculation and viral trends often override human agency. Others debated whether it was too abrupt, leaving Kimmel and the audience struggling to process what had just happened. And that was the brilliance of it. Carrey had turned a conversation, built on mockery, into a defining statement about respect, identity, and agency. By walking away, he forced both the live audience and viewers at home to confront a question that lingered long after the cameras faded. Who really went too far? Was it the host for pushing the rumor, or the guest for refusing to play along? In that silence, in that moment of authority, the audience understood something rare. Sometimes the most powerful action is not to argue, but to walk away. And Carrey did it flawlessly, leaving a theater, a show, and a culture buzzing in shock and awe.